Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Nick Fair from the IT Innovation Centre at the University of Southampton, and I'm here today with my colleague
Dr. Stephen Phillips, also from the IT Innovation Centre.
So we have now added in what we think would be a range of suitable control strategies and individual controls. The next thing that we should do, and you should be in the same position as us now, we should be ready to run the risk assessment. So Stephen, what's up next?
Exactly. So our initial risk calculation showed very high likelihoods of all of these problems and therefore high risk levels. Now we put some controls in, we should see those levels come right down. There we go. So nice quick calculation, and we can now see that our highest risk level problem at medium, which is still kind of uncomfortably high, is the loss of confidentiality of the data. So a likelihood of medium means that it's expected every year or so, which isn't really acceptable to have a data breach every year. So we do need to bring that down. If we can bring it down to low, that means it's possible but not inevitable within the lifetime of the typical system. So you quite often can't really secure a system so much that it's never going to happen. Low's pretty good, very low, even better.
So, and also just to be clear, in this particular panel on the model summary, the way they're ordered will be that the highest direct risk will always be listed first at the top.
Yeah, that's the default. So you can see the little arrow there by direct risk. You could sort by likelihood or impact. I mean, we chose the impact. Some have impacts built in, but looking at the direct risk is a good place to start, because then you're basically saying, what's my biggest problem? Let's go from there. The other way into improving the risk level is to look at the threats, which we haven't bothered going into. You can see it's identified 816 threats to the system. Now that sounds kind of quite surprising in terms of the number, but the threats in Spyderisk are very sort of small, localized steps, and we chain them together so that one problem leads to another. So each threat is a sort of small event, and that's why there's so many of them. And I mean, just imagine doing an analysis so complex yourself that you're going to list 816 different things that could go wrong with the system. That's kind of one of the real strengths here. You can go into the threats, and again, it's showing us those with the highest system risk first, which will be related to what we're just about to see, but it's not necessarily the simplest way in. So the easiest way in to examine what's causing your biggest problem is to click on the consequence over here in the consequences panel. This opens up what we call the Consequence Explorer, and it gives you more detail about that particular problem. First of all, it shows you what we call the root causes. You need to understand that the way Spyderisk is modelling the situation is a series of steps that one thing leads to another. Sometimes one thing leads to many things and it branches out. Sometimes more than one thing is needed to cause something else, and things converge again, but you get this complicated graph of cause and effect through the system, and the root cause is the start of one of those what we call an attack path.
Okay.
So the root causes are the start, and that's kind of represented by this little icon here, something at the start pointing at the consequence at the end. We also have the direct causes, which are the step immediately before. Also useful to know. If we can address one of these root causes, because it's right at the start of a sequence of events, if we can prevent something early on, that's good, because it's probably also going to prevent all sorts of other problems that we're not looking at here.
So the root cause is essentially the beginning of the chain of problems.
Yeah,
The direct cause is the problem immediately before the one that we're looking at in this case.
exactly. So we could try and solve one of these direct causes, and that may also be the right thing to do sometimes. But the chances are it'll only kind of solve this one problem. It'll be a very localized fix, whereas there might be something more general we can do that will fix lots of things all at once.
Yeah, so solving the root cause is likely to resolve multiple problems,
Yeah.
and is therefore a sensible place to begin.
Yeah. Sometimes the root cause is out of your control, in which case you have to start further down the path. Then we've also got other aspects on this panel, but let's go back to these root causes. One of the root causes is execution of a malicious email attachment, and you can just see hiding underneath the panel here that it's highlighting the laptop and the company premises and other assets involved. And if we click on that, we get the Threat Explorer, which tells us more about that threat. So this is the malware infection we discussed before, and that's the root cause. Can we address that? Well, if we scroll down to the bottom, it's going to present us with different control strategies that we could put in place to address this problem. And it appears that when I was adding the controls to the system, I added on software patching at the laptop, but I didn't remember to put on anti-malware at the laptop. So that's why this event can occur, which then cascades onto other issues, including the loss of confidentiality of the customer data. And we could explore step by step through these explorers. So, that execution of the malicious email attachment, that's got two consequences: loss of user trustworthiness in different contexts, and you can click on one of those, and that you're back in the consequence explorer over here, and you can see, okay, well, what does that cause? And you can click around, and it's quite easy to get lost. But so we've added in a functionality where we can show the shortest path or paths through the system that cause your biggest problem. And this opens up in a new tab here, and it's showing us that the root cause here, same one we were just looking at, execution of malicious email attachment, and it's showing us kind of what enables that root cause to happen. In our model, it's quite likely because the astuteness of the sales manager is set to medium. So this is something we didn't touch on before, but it's another bit of the modeling of the assets where we configure them with certain properties we call trustworthiness properties. And we're just saying that, this sales manager, well, they're just an ordinary person. They're not specially clued up on cybersecurity, and so there's a fair chance that they're going to get taken in by an email and open that attachment. So we can look down this graph to understand, as I was saying, how things branch and join. And the root cause is the execution of the email attachment. The consequences are often quite hard to understand. Don't worry about those too much. Helps to look at the threats on the whole. And we can see that because of the execution of that attachment, it says use of privileges at the emailer client to access the laptop in the company premises. So that essentially means the attacker is able to move in from the emailer client into the laptop environment. Once they're on the laptop, it's possible to then communicate on the Wi-Fi LAN that the laptop's connected to, and so we say that the Wi-Fi loses network user trustworthiness. We're saying that there's untrustworthy people with access to the Wi-Fi. Then we've got a branch, so this is sometimes where you get lost, because two things can happen here that are both quite likely. There's a remote anonymous exploit on the server from the Wi-Fi LAN via the wired LAN. So we're able to use the understanding of how the networks connect up to say, well, that's something that could be possible. or the attacker might find an exploit on the web server service. Remember, that's the thing like Apache, the actual application process. So they might be able to access that directly from the Wi-Fi. And they cause problems, they cause other threats, so getting admin rights at the server, or getting admin rights at the server by different means. So then we join back together and we can see use of admin privileges at the server, that you obviously access that data, the customer data that's stored on the server. The consequence at the end is loss of confidentiality of that data.
So these attack paths are a really good way for any of us using this system to be able to understand these chains of cause and effect, and also how complex some of those chains can be with these multiple branches, multiple attack routes to get to the same end point.
Exactly.
So it's a really helpful tool in trying to understand exactly how an attack happens step by step in various different possible branches of that attack.
Yeah. So moderately complex here, but actually all we're showing is the shortest paths through the system from that root cause to the consequence. So there are actually many other variations that we're not bothering to show here because it just becomes overwhelming again. And really, most of the time, if you address the problems on the shortest path, again, you're going to be mostly stopping the other paths as well. And if you haven't stopped the other paths, then the system will highlight those next.
And by implementing the suggested controls on the root cause, we can basically eradicate this entire attack path.
Exactly, the whole chain's just going to disappear.
Yeah.
There might be other problems that could cause the same situation at the end, but you're taking out that whole chain because you're addressing it right at the top.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that. Click on loss of confidentiality, click on the root cause we were concerning ourselves with, and in the Threat Explorer, scroll down to the bottom, turn on the anti-malware at the laptop, and as soon as we change one of these controls, the calculate risk button turns red to remind you that the information in the model is out of date. So if we click it again, I'm suspicious that the level might stay the same. No, we brought it right down. So because we've now not prevented but much reduced the likelihood of malware getting onto that laptop, all of those risk levels have come down because all of those likelihoods are now on very low. But low could be good enough. So we might want to just stop there. But it's worth just having a look at, well, given we fixed that, what are the next most pressing problems? We can't necessarily fix everything, but we can still explore things. So, like I said, we've got these two credential stuffing attacks. So that's, as I said, where someone tries password after password from a dictionary attack or whatever.
Like a brute force.
Yeah, brute forcing the password. So they're being highlighted. Low likelihood, a low system risk, but maybe we should do something about them if we can.
And after all, they are root causes, so they might have impacts on other
Exactly.
risks elsewhere in the system as well.
Exactly, and frankly, we can quite easily solve them. So if we click on one of them in the Threat Explorer, again, as usual, it describes it more, but then also presents quite a range of different control strategies to solve this problem, and that includes things like setting authentication limits in the login service of questions. So that's you can only try logging in 5 times a minute or whatever, or you're blocked when you get 10 unsuccessful attempts.
Yeah.
So we could do that, or we could set that it needs a one-time key password, like a code from your phone, which totally prevents credential stuffing. Lots of different options. So we can just click on those, and similarly for the other login service where there was a credential stuffing, we can click that in. You see, there's plenty of very low likelihood things that could happen.
Yeah.
We might have addressed a few of them there.
But essentially the point here, though, is that you can continue down the list levels and address each and every one of them. But there comes a balance between what's sensible, practical, affordable to achieve and how much reward you get for doing it.
Exactly.
And this is why we've started off by showing you the way to address the highest priority threats, or those with the largest direct risk, the highest direct risk I should really say, first, and looking at root causes first, because these ones are going to give you the most return on your effort and expense in introducing these types of controls.
Yes.
So while we could go on showing you how we can explore through all of these very low likelihood, low risk events, we've probably reached a point in this particular system, which is a fairly simplistic one, where we probably would say any more and we might be not getting enough return on our effort. So we probably can take a point and make a judgment call, and this is for you to do as your role as the risk analyst, at what point that balance tips from being something that is worth introducing and spending the time and money to do, and that which is not.
Yeah, exactly. And remember as well, controls can be costly to implement, especially physical ones, but also controls themselves can have consequences and cause you other problems. So there's you have to get down to a point where what we call the residual risk is acceptable to the business, and that you can move forward confident that it's low enough and you've struck that right balance that Nick was discussing.
And this is an important point about the Spyderisk tool. While Spyderisk automates a very large amount of the risk assessment process for you, it doesn't make decisions for you. And so this is a tool that supports you in your job if you are working as a risk analyst for a company, or supports you if you're in other roles where you're doing this type of activity. It doesn't replace you in any way.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely.
Yep. Thank you very much, Stephen. So that brings us to the end of our short video series on getting hands-on with Spyderisk. I've been Dr. Nick Fair.
And I've been Dr. Stephen Phillips.
Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.